Hello everyone, Shawn, Kenney here, playing some more Kerbal Space Program and the continuation of the mission to Jool. See the Jool in the background. I tried multiple burns, and I don't usually like saving and trying multiple burns, but when it's, spent a lot of fuel trying to get out to Jool, I was trying to see what if anything was possible, and unfortunately my skills were just not up to the challenge. I was trying to flatten out my orbit as much as possible. I was coming in at a really a high polar orbit, and it was really hard to get any kind of intercept. Burned a lot of fuel, and at this point I think my best bet is to try and get as close to Kerbal as possible. I'm going to try and get home, but I really wanted to try and get home from Jool with pretty much those 4 fuel tanks on the side full. I've used, pretty much half that, all the fuel, and of course the main cylinder that we dropped off in the last episode. Now I'm going to be salvaging what fuel I can out of this lander to try and get us home and return us to Kerbal, or as close to Kerbal as possible. We're going to have to send a rescue mission to actually get them back, though, it looks like. But, I figure with that Explorer ship, I want to have, we almost get out to Jool. It still needs a little bit of tweaking, and I do want to get a ship that's going to be able to get me out to everywhere, because Squad has just announced that the 0.22 update is going into playtesting, and that is going to be adding science, and I'm so excited. Science and a tech tree and some new parts, and it just sounds, this is going to be adding kind of what I like playing Kethane for that purpose of going out to those planets. So, what are we going to do when we get out to those planets? Well, I can mine. I think that's resources is something that they've talked about adding down the road. Right now, they've been working on the science. I'm so excited. The way it's going to be working is, I guess we're going to be getting, we're going to have our science. There's already the science parts in there right now. They can give us some readouts, but there's no real way of collecting data. So they're going to be adding that. We're going to be able to collect the data. Apparently, you're either going to be able to transmit it back to Kerbal, or you can return the ship to Kerbal, and then when you reclaim the ship, you're going to be picking up the data at that point. How that works as far as unlocking tech trees, I don't. We don't really know some details. Hopefully we're going to be seeing that really soon. As you can see, I'm just sort of burning, trying to get as close to Kerbal, maybe try and get an intercept and slow down if I can. But we've exhausted all our fuel, so we might as well get rid of all of that. I'm going to use this little RCS, but in retrospect, I thought this might be a good idea, but I think I'm going to replace that with just another can of fuel, one of those small ones that's the same size as the RCS fuel that I have on there. I think in the long run, I don't need a whole lot of stability, and that's usually what I only use RCS for. I think I would have got a little bit more efficiency if I was using that through a fuel tank of that same size through the nuclear engines. So yeah, I got as far as I could, though. And we'll just decouple that, have a little bit of fuel in here, but even still, that's not anywhere near enough to try and decelerate us from or it's not even going to be enough to get us into orbit around Kerbal, that's for sure. So I'm more, as you can see, I'm zipping. I'm going to be zipping out. So it's time for a rescue mission. And so that's going to be a great part too with the science, is like if you have a science ship and maybe do collect that data, well, maybe it's going to, you're going to want to send rescue ships out if it was supposed to return back, but you don't run it at I like to do these shakedown tests here now first. So we'll get the rescue mission launched, and it didn't quite work out as I expected. Some strut issues, I believe, is what happened there. So as you can see, my rocket is going in the wrong direction. But we'll get there. So I'm going to have to go back and do a little bit of restrutting. If stuff brakes, more struts. So the rescue of the Jool mission is on its way, although it had some vibration issues, and so we lost that tank and ended up having to use a little bit more fuel in the ship to get in orbit. But we have a lot of Delta V in it, I figure, and we got all the way out to Jool. We don't even have to get out that far. We're just go out, rendezvous with our pod. It's a little bit of an angle, but it's not too bad, and we'll be able to bring it back. So it's going to take a lot of maneuver nodes. To I'm going to cut out a lot of it for you guys because it's just not that interesting, and it's hours of even at the highest time acceleration, when you have an orbit out to Jool, it takes a while. It really takes a while, and a lot of fuel, but we made it. So I'm going to use the pod itself to rendezvous because it's a lot lighter and a lot easier to maneuver. There we go. A little bit of wiggling, but we have capture eventually. Sometimes. There we go. All right. So it's time to head on home, and the guys are just telling me, "Oh, you can't believe it. Jool is so green. It's amazing. Can't wait to actually explore some of the planetoids, the planets, moons of Jool. It looks really exciting." So we know what we need. We need a bit more Delta V in our Explorer, because then we'll have a ship that can go out to Jool, and then I figure if it can get out to Jool, it can get pretty much anywhere in the solar system. So we'll be ready for for science. But I ended up running out of fuel. I did get a Kerbal intercept, but we didn't have enough fuel to slow down. So I had to send a rescue of a rescue ship, which required more maneuver nodes, and more maneuver nodes. Yes, maneuver nodes. But eventually, we finally got in close. So I had a few Kerbals just hanging out in a high elliptical orbit for a long time. Thankfully, I don't think they're adding rations in the 0.22, so don't have to worry about how much food we keep on board. But time to separate this out, and all I did was add a 4-block and then a bunch of docking ports on top of another Explorer ship, and it's the second rescue ship for the Jool ship. But we'll get them home. And I'm going to salvage what little fuel I had left on the last part there, because every little bit apparently is going to help. Because I haven't been able to get these guys back so far. All right, so a little bit of rocking, tapping that SAS really helps, and I can just just transfer whatever fuel I need left, and but we have plenty now. I think with that big bottom tank, we're not going to have a problem, I don't think. But I'm just going to use a little bit of RCS back out of there, and see you later. Drive section. All right, this time we're going home, right? I hope so. Our orbit's been progressively getting smaller and smaller. But clearly, I'm going to need a little bit of redesign, but I have an idea for that, so I'm looking forward to the next episode. But I do want to just rebalance out that pod. Unfortunately, a little burst of RCS happened to drain all the RCS out of this pod, so I'm going to have to actually redock with that pod and then fill it back up. So, there we go. Alright, this time I'm going to make sure all the tanks are filled up with RCS. Okay, good. And this way we'll have a balanced load during the burn. I don't think it would make a big difference, but it might give a little bit of a list to one side or the other. So I'd rather avoid that. And why not? There we go. A A little bit of vibrating. There we go. All right. So off we go. Back to Kerbin. We have lots of fuel, so I'm feeling pretty confident this time. As you can see, I'm more or less in a Kerbin orbit. Here we go. All right. Time to decelerate. Use that last. Actually, used up all that the rest of the main tank there, but still had quite a bit of fuel left. So at this point, I could just atmosphere burn. We have a periapsis of like 40 kilometers, but I figured might as well burn off all the fuel so it doesn't cause any damage when I eject it in the atmosphere. Hopefully it'll burn up. Now, of course, I like leaving my solar panels out during a re-entry because, oh man, I love their physics engine. A little in-cockpit view there. Unfortunately, I didn't pick one that had a window. I wanted to check it out, but as you can see, it's getting quite hot. So I think it's a good time to forget a lesson in not ejecting debris in your flight path. But whatever, just glides out of the way, no harm done. Alright, we just get rid of that, and not exactly the best way to re-enter an atmosphere, but while it's not doing any damage, it is cool nonetheless. As you know, some nice flaming parachutes. We'll just get these guys separated out. I'm not quite sure what exploded there, but thankfully it didn't cause any permanent damage to the pod. Maybe one of those RCS pods. I'm not sure. And you know what? I think I forgot. I should have put maybe a docking port between those two so I could eject this big 4-port. But I think the parachute should be able to handle the extra weight. And this is one of my favorite parts once we get down to the parachute level. We're all safely aboard, or safely home on Kerbin. Oh yeah, and I fixed the space station. Oops. Just wanted to flip that around because it was really bugging me. Now I have a couple extra ports. I can send up a few fuel pods to really make this a nice big refueling station. We'll need to add a science module once 0.22 comes out. So I'm Shawn Kenney. Thanks for watching. So long for now.